Great to see you here again. My name is Luc de Custer, founder of the Custer Academy. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the fact or the way to estimate the remaining duration of the project and how we can use and interpret the Burndown chart. Now, before we start, don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. So let's have a look at how can we estimate the duration, the remaining duration of the project. Now, the problem typically with Scrum or many Agile projects is at the beginning we don't really know how long the project will take. We can look at past experiences, we can look at the estimations that we did, we can look at the Fibonacci estimates that we made and all these things. But basically when we start, it's not like in a classical waterfall project where we estimate the duration of the tasks. We look at their linking, their dependencies, we create a network diagram, we create a Gantt chart, and we have a time schedule. Here we don't really know. What we can do is to estimate how long a sprint will take and how many sprints we expect to need to complete the work based on our experience. But at the beginning, we don't really know. Now, it's very important to keep some reserve when we make an estimation for unexpected work or issues. We have always something, we try to make it too narrow. We have to include some reserves. Things can go wrong, things can change. You have to be sure of that. Planning without reserve or backup is always a bad idea. Now, the team will understand how reliable their estimates are. For example, let's say the estimates would be something like 85%. That would be a good estimate for the team. Now, when we are at the beginning, we have no idea of the team performance and unknown improvements. We don't really know what's happening. So we have an initial estimate, but we can fine-tune that estimate further and further in the project. Now, we measure per sprint how many Fibonacci points we complete and calculate the average. And based on this, we can in fact estimate the remaining time because we know how many points we do in a sprint. And in addition to that, we can calculate how many sprints we still need to finish the remaining number of points. Basically, from that moment, it becomes rather easy once we have that understanding. Now, let's have a look at the Burndown chart. The Burndown chart is a chart like this. It's an ideal chart. We have on the bottom row, we have the time. On the vertical line, we have the work effort, typically in points. And here we designed the blue line is in fact the planned remaining value to be created, the value expressed in points. On the other hand, in red, we're looking at what we've done. So every point we say after every sprint, we say, well, this is basically the work we completed and what we still have to do. And we try to compare both of them. Now, I'm not going to draw any conclusions on this graph. We will be looking at some other graphs to see how it should work in reality. You can do this within a sprint. You can measure what you're doing within a sprint, how much work you planned in the sprint, and see how much work has already been completed. And when you make a Burndown chart within the sprint, it gives you a very clear idea how the project is going. You can visualize it, and the team will see if they're working well or not. Now, you show with this graph the progress. Here we are above, which is not really good. We're a little bit behind, but we're coming closer. It can be when we continue that we go below, a little bit below the graph. Completely below would also not be good, but anyway, we see how it works. We see the evolution, and it drives progress and motivation for the team members. Let's have a look at the ideal line, following the ideal line. So this is the line that we presented. This is our expected overview of the work that we're going to complete. And this is, in fact, the effect of the sprints. Now, the sprints are discontinuous. We have here the green line, which is a continuous line, and in the red line, we have jumps. And what we see, well, basically, we are completing the work as planned. We're a little bit ahead, a little bit behind, but finally, we arrive at the moment where we have to be. There are no measures to take. There is a great team effort in this case, and the Scrum Master has not much work to do here. But it's not always ideal. Let's have a look at the unconfident way of, let's say, the unconfident, or the team is not confident. So we have a drop at the beginning, and the work basically is completed faster than planned. Now, it means that there is something wrong here. We don't like to have this, and it can be an indication of lack of confidence, because the Burndown line, the original Burndown line, is too pessimistic. But there can be other reasons. There can be other reasons. It can be explained, for example, that certain things were taken out of the project, and of course, then we will finish the project faster. We realized what we want, and then it's okay. Now you have to discuss this with the team, also with the product owner, to understand what is happening. But basically it means the team is not confident, they're overestimating, and you have to change that because it doesn't bring a realistic approach to the customer and the product owner. Problematic number one, drop at the end. What we see here is at the end we have a drop, and we call it a lack of experience in this case. So we're at the end of the sprint or of the project. It can be that the team is not organized enough, and this should be discussed in the retrospectives. You see that there is too many things that are not working in the beginning. It can also be a lack of updating and not proper use of the chart. When you don't update the chart, of course, it will not show the value or the information that you want to know. And what can happen is that they start with too many items and they finish them at the end of the sprint, for example, if this is the overview of the sprint. And then basically bad teamwork and integration. So the Burndown chart, the information here is very valuable to identify what problems you are in fact facing. Another thing, the line goes up, probably missing sprint goals. Work is added after the sprint has started, which is typically a scope creep, which should not happen. This Burndown line should go down. There may be bad estimations of the work to be completed, bad sprint planning. The team will lose their motivation, and the Scrum Master must intervene to avoid this in the next sprint. When you look at the sprint itself, this is really very bad. If you look at the project itself, you have the same conclusions, but basically after a sprint and you see this, you will already understand that you have to do something. Almost finished. Here we have the almost finished. Some things go well, but there are unresolved issues. There is an overcommitment, and there are too ambitious sprint goals. There are missing team members, probably due to illness or holidays. You have to look at these elements. Appearance of a mini waterfall in the sprint, and delays due to late testing. Bottleneck due to absence of a product owner. So these are different elements that you can estimate about how is the sprint working, how is the work being done, and you can look at all the elements here, see how the work is going, and every time when you look at the different charts, you can find out what's the ideal graph that you made, what are we doing, and of course when you see this happening, all these different things happening during the sprint, you can immediately interfere because you can say, hey, we have a problem here, and that's why the stand-ups are very important to find out these elements. If the sprint goes bad, of course, you can improve it in the next sprint. A lot of information that you have, and it provides a very flexible way to deal with the sprint plannings, to deal with the work. So that was it about the Burndown lines, estimating the end of the project. Very, let's say, very important when it works. Very interesting to follow up within the sprints and within the project. And of course, it provides you a lot of information. How fast are we going? How well are we organized? And it is a very, very powerful tool. So that was it for this video. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button, click on the bell button, and every time we have a new video, YouTube will inform you about it. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.